Let's start. Threats in this position are: queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes bishop. The checks are: queen takes pawn, check. Rook to e8, check. Answer to this puzzle is: bishop to f5. Rook to f8. Rook to e8. Bishop to e7. Rook takes bishop. Queen to f4. Bishop to d3. Queen to c1, check. King to g2. Queen to d2, check. Queen to e2. Let's see the next puzzle. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. Knight takes bishop, check. Knight takes pawn. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes bishop. Bishop takes pawn. Here are the checks. Knight to b6, check. Knight takes bishop, check. The puzzle is solved using: knight to b6, check. King to b8. Knight takes rook. Bishop takes queen. Knight takes queen. Let's continue. Threats in puzzle position are: knight takes pawn. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes knight. Queen takes pawn. There are no checks in this position. Here is the solution to the puzzle. b5. Pawn takes pawn. Queen takes rook. Another one. The threats are: rook takes pawn. Rook takes bishop. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes bishop. The checks are: rook to e8, check. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes pawn, check. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Rook takes pawn. Bishop takes rook. Queen takes bishop, check. King to g8. Queen takes rook, check. Let's continue. Threats in puzzle position are: rook takes rook. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes bishop. Bishop takes pawn. There are no checks in this position. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Rook takes rook. Bishop takes rook. b5. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes bishop. Another puzzle. Threats in puzzle position are: pawn takes rook. King takes rook. Pawn takes rook. Queen takes rook, check. Checks in this position are: queen takes rook, check. Solution to the puzzle is: queen takes rook, check. Knight to f5, check. King to h8. Rook takes queen. Pawn takes queen. Next puzzle. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. There are no threats in this position. Here are checks in puzzle position. Queen to a4, check. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Queen to a4, check. Queen to d7. Queen takes knight. Let's continue. The threats are: there are no threats in this position. There are no checks in this position. The best move in puzzle position is a6. King takes pawn. King takes pawn. f4. Pawn takes pawn. Let's see the next puzzle. The threats are: bishop takes bishop. Rook takes pawn. The checks are: bishop to c6, check. Bishop to h5, check. Queen to a4, check. The best move in puzzle position is bishop takes bishop. Knight takes bishop. Queen to f3. King to g8. Queen takes knight. One more. Threats in this position are: bishop takes pawn. Bishop takes bishop, check. Knight takes pawn, check. Knight takes pawn. Knight takes pawn, check. Knight takes pawn, check. Knight takes rook. Here are the checks. Bishop takes bishop, check. Knight takes pawn, check. Knight takes pawn, check. Knight takes pawn, check. The puzzle is solved using: bishop takes bishop, check. Queen takes bishop. Knight takes rook. Let's see the next puzzle. Threats in puzzle position are: rook takes pawn. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes bishop. Bishop takes pawn. The checks are: queen takes pawn, check. The puzzle is solved using: queen takes bishop. Pawn takes queen. Rook takes rook, check. Rook to g1. Rook to f2. Queen takes rook. Bishop takes queen. Next puzzle. Here are the threats: rook takes pawn. Rook takes pawn. Queen takes pawn, check. Checks in puzzle position are: rook to g6, check. Queen to d5, check. Queen takes pawn, check. The answer is queen to d5, check. Rook to e6. Queen takes rook, check. Queen takes queen. Rook takes queen. Let us go to the next puzzle. Puzzle position vulnerabilities are: rook takes pawn. The checks are: rook to g4 check, rook to h3 check, rook to g4 check. Solution to the puzzle is: rook to g4 check, king to f3, rook to h3 check, king takes rook, rook takes queen. One more. The threats are: knight takes pawn, knight takes pawn, knight takes pawn, pawn takes bishop, bishop takes pawn. Checks in this position are: knight to f6 check. Answer to this puzzle is: pawn takes bishop, queen takes pawn, knight to h2, queen takes queen, rook takes queen, knight to f6, knight takes knight check. Another puzzle. Here are threats in puzzle position: queen takes knight check. Checks in this position are: queen takes knight check, rook to e8 check. Here is the solution to the puzzle: queen to h6, knight to e2 check, rook takes knight, queen to d4 check, rook to f2, queen to a1 check, rook to f1. Let's see the next puzzle. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. Rook takes pawn check. Checks in puzzle position are: rook takes pawn check. The puzzle is solved using: rook to d2, rook takes pawn, rook takes pawn. Let's see the next puzzle. Threats in puzzle position are: bishop takes pawn. There are no checks in this position. Answer to this puzzle is: bishop to b4, queen to d7, queen takes queen, bishop takes queen, bishop takes rook. Let's see the next puzzle. Threats in this position are: bishop takes pawn, rook takes pawn. The checks are: rook to d5 check. The best move in puzzle position is: rook to d5 check, king to a4, rook takes knight. Let's see the next puzzle. The threats are: rook takes pawn, knight takes knight, knight takes pawn, knight takes pawn, queen takes queen. There are no checks in this position. Answer to this puzzle is: knight takes knight, pawn takes knight, bishop takes pawn, bishop takes bishop, rook takes bishop. Let's see the next puzzle. The threats are: pawn takes rook, bishop takes pawn. There are no checks in this position. Solution to the puzzle is: pawn takes rook, knight to c7, bishop takes pawn. Let's see the next puzzle. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. Bishop takes pawn, queen takes pawn, queen takes rook check, bishop takes knight check. Checks in puzzle position are: queen takes rook check, bishop takes knight check. The best move in puzzle position is: queen takes rook check, bishop to f1, bishop to h3. Another one. Threats in puzzle position are: queen takes pawn, queen takes pawn check. Here are the checks: queen to d8 check, queen to f7 check, queen to f8 check, queen to g7 check, queen to h8 check, queen to g6 check, queen to g5 check, queen takes pawn check. Solution to the puzzle is: queen to g6 check, king to h8, knight to f7 checkmate. One more. Here are the threats: pawn takes pawn. Checks in this position are: bishop to f5 check. The answer is: pawn takes pawn. Next, threats in puzzle position are: queen takes pawn, queen takes knight check, queen takes queen check, queen takes pawn check, queen takes pawn, queen takes pawn. Here are checks in puzzle position: queen takes knight check, queen to f7 check, queen takes queen check, queen takes pawn check. The puzzle is solved using: queen to d6, queen to f8, queen to h6 check, king to g8, queen to e6 check. Next puzzle. Puzzle position vulnerabilities are: queen takes knight, queen takes pawn, rook takes knight, rook takes rook. Let us look at checks in puzzle position: queen to d5 check, queen to f6 check, queen to g7 check, queen to c4 check. Solution to the puzzle is: rook takes rook, bishop to e4 check, Queen takes bishop. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.